Introverted thinking, extroverted thinking. They are both thinking functions. They both reflect a very similar mental process in a way. Carl Jung has described both of these functions as functions that enable people to look at the logical aspect of things and better understand how to apply that with respect to different perspectives. But nonetheless, I think that introverted thinking basically highlights an individual who's more likely to try to create their own inner framework of how things need to be structured and what the logical component of the whole system is. People who have TI as a preference, either as a hero or auxiliary or as a child function or even an inferior function, so they have introverted thinking in their ego, they're much more likely to try to take out information from the outside world and facts and details and whatever, and kind of integrate all of these in their own inner logical framework. It's as if they have a puzzle. The puzzle represents how their mind computes such information, and at various points in time, different pieces of the puzzle are proposed to these people by the external world. You might meet someone who wants to present you with their experiences. You might meet someone who wants to tell you a fact. You might meet someone who is interested in sharing their own, perception of things or their own ideas. And someone who values TI over TE will take these proposed pieces of the puzzle or these suggested pieces of the puzzle, and they will try to place them in within the existing matrix or in the existing set of puzzle pieces. And they will try to see, okay, I received this puzzle piece, I'm going to put it in my own puzzle representation, and I'm going to try to check whether this is really the best fit for how I imagine things to be, or whether I should maybe check for a different piece of the puzzle. Then someone else will bring a piece of the puzzle. They will do the same process with that. They will take it, they will put it in their own puzzle, they will check whether it works or whether it doesn't, and maybe the piece will fit, so they will continue and move on to the next level with a new piece of the puzzle for a different category. If you guys are familiar with backtracking as an algorithm structure or style, I mean, I'm not a computer scientist, I just studied it a little bit in high school, so I have a general understanding of what it means. I somehow imagine TI doing a similar kind of process. I'm not saying that TI is all about backtracking or that TI only does that, but for some reason it seems to me that people who prefer TI, they will often do this kind of comparison and go back and forth between adjacent levels in order to create that pyramidal structure. And it seems to me that something quite different happens with extroverted thinking, because extroverted thinking often does not have the patience to always check these things, to always look at the pieces of the puzzle, compare and contrast them with the inner logical framework, and to try to kind of understand whether those pieces of the puzzle actually fit in there. So what you will often notice with people who prefer TE, again, somewhere in their first four functions, so all FBs and all TJs, they will usually have a much better focus on efficiency. They will want this idea or this fact or this representation of something to work as a ruling principle for themselves and for other people. This is one of the main descriptions that Carl Jung has given for extroverted thinking types, especially ENTJs and ESTJs. They want to find a ruling principle that is as simple as possible in order for them to apply it for themselves, their lives, and for the lives of other people. You will see it in managers doing this with their teams. You will see it in parents doing this with their families, or people just functioning like this in groups of friends, in society, at work, and so on. So TE will be like, okay, I can see all of these pieces of the puzzle, but I'm not so interested in taking them in and checking them and checking and checking and checking. I'm much more interested to listen to a piece of information that I believe has the highest chance to be reliable. So they will turn their attention towards people who are experts, for instance. This is one way in which TE operates. It will look at experts and it will say, well, because this person has a degree in, I don't know, some field that is of interest, and several years of experience in that field, and a lot of good reviews, or whatever other things might indicate that the person has expertise, TE will say, okay, I acknowledge that there is a possibility this information is not correct. I acknowledge that it might be the case that the person is wrong, but I will still try to integrate that piece of information and use it to move along. So see the difference here? TI is like, give me the information and give me time to process. I'll come back with a result later. TE is like, give me the information and I will move on. If at some point in the future something will happen and I will be proven wrong, I will deal with the consequences. But it's important for me to move forward. It's important to me to kind of not lose time trying to compare and contrast and analyze things in an excessive manner. I want to move on. I want to deal with the world. And that's the extroverted nature of the function. It's more interested in moving and interacting with the outside world, gathering information, whereas TI is more concerned with, okay, what is happening in within? How can I do and how can I make sense of everything that is happening in this inner logical framework in order to make sure that this is the perfect recipe for something? And don't get me wrong, both TI and TE really care about efficiency. Both of these functions are concerned with efficiency, but they will do it in different ways. They will care about it in different ways. And generally speaking, you will notice that people who prefer thinking over feeling, whether that's TI or TE, they're more likely to be objective. But I'm not sure that always applies. I think there's still a little bit of room for debate when it comes to this, because it's also a result of the other cognitive functions in the ego and where exactly they are in the stack and contextual situations and so on. But getting back to the main point, I think this is probably the easiest way to understand the difference between the two cognitive functions. Am I going to take information from the outside, immerse it in my inner world, taking time to create the perfect potion? Or am I more likely to check the main criteria that will prove to me that some piece of information from the external world is reliable? I acknowledge that it might be wrong, but I think there's a high probability that it is correct, so I'm going to move forward with that. Okay, so these are my thoughts on TI versus TE. Have you noticed any other patterns? Have you noticed any other differences between the two cognitive functions? I'm curious to see what you think, so share your thoughts below. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next week with a video on another comparison between two cognitive functions.